Hello, everyone. My name is George MacLean from the University of the UQs, and I'd like to thank the organizers of TESOL for this opportunity to talk to you about feedback and transmitting it to students using Google Workspace. I wish I could be there in person for the conference. However, not possible this time. I hope to see many of you next time. To begin with, let me share with you my screen and give you an overview of what we're going to talk about today. To begin with, accelerating feedback and transmitting it to students using Google Workspace. I'd like to thank the Japanese Society for the Promotion of Science for their gracious support in this research. Giving feedback is time-consuming but essential. It's very important for the transparency of a course so that students know they're standing at any given time. It also encourages them to be consistent in their efforts. But if you're doing this in a paper-based environment, it can be very, very challenging. And so some of the innovations that have come out in the last 10 years are very encouraging. There's a lot of support available. Students can now access and often submit their work using computers, tablets, even their phone. And so the applications I'll be talking about today include Google Sheets, Google Drive, Google Forms, and Flipgrid. There are a number of other applications that can help you to collect student work and give them feedback very quickly about it. An overview of my talk today. I'll be talking about a master log, which is basically a compendium of all the important links to all of the courses that I'm teaching this semester. I'll then be talking about worksheets with one particular worksheet in mind. So I have a worksheet for each class that contains most of their work and their grades, their attendance, etc. I'll also be talking about a grades and homework sheet, which is available to the instructor, of course, and also to students where they can see it anytime, anywhere. I'll be talking about a feedback sheet and shared drive as well. I will be giving you examples of how to compile basic feedback along the way. And I have two special tips. One is about security with the Google Workspace. Applications generally have security settings that I will be demonstrating. And then finally, embedding links is a very important part of this whole process. So for those of you who are not familiar with embedding links, it's basically you highlight a given URL and using the control or the command key, control or command plus K plus V, you're able to embed a link. So without further ado, let's begin. I'll start with my Gmail. So from Gmail, in the top right corner, there's an application launcher that launches all the important Workspace applications. In this case, what I'm going to do is open my drive now. And as I open my drive, several things become available to me. And I'm going to start with the master sheet, which I've actually embedded, or at least I thought I did. Okay, I'll have to get it somewhere else, which is where? Just a moment, and I'll get it for you. Okay, so here is my master log. And basically in the master log, on the first page, I keep a list of the courses with embedded links for each of the class worksheets so that I can open it at any given time. It's been my experience, I have classes back to back, that students, rather than coming to see me during my office hours, would prefer to talk about their work at the end of class, which can be a little challenging because I'm often trying to set up for the next class. So having everything in one place helps me to set that up really quickly. As I said, I have the worksheets, Zoom links. Hopefully we won't have to use Zoom this semester, attendance, grades and homework, and feedback sheets all there. And then there's a few other things inside of this. The tabs along the bottom give you some idea of other things that I keep in my master log. It includes a master list of all my students, an enrollment, which helps me to manage the enrollment in the spring, and a seating plan for students. So that's the basic idea for a master log that keeps everything in one place. And then specifically to go to specific courses, in this case, I'm going to be looking at a first year course that's just begun. We're in our second week, I believe now. And here is the worksheet for that particular class. It starts off with their names and their secret names and their Gmail addresses. So let's look at what else is in there. We have names, we have grades, we have attendance, and then we have, as you can notice, this is purple. This indicates that it is it's based on a Google form. So it's automatically tied to my worksheet. So that's one where students submitted a secret name, which is really important. And I'll explain that more in a second. Another example of a tab that is tied to a Google Sheet. In this case, a profile of students. Each student submits a profile so I can get to know them a little bit better. So going back to our grades, at this point in time, I have nothing in there, but you can notice I've already made some links for assignments that exist. Important here is basically we have student names. In this case, for privacy's sake, I've used student 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. But students, when I'm posting grades, I ask them to actually create a secret name, right? And that is done through a form. And I'm able to get everything really quickly just by giving them a form and asking them to give me their name and then a secret name. And forms are tied back to that worksheet. So when I can click on the green icon, it will open my worksheet that we were just looking at. Okay, and from that, I'm able to assign students secret names, or actually get students to designate secret names, and that helps me to compile their grades. So let's look at some of the things that they've done so far. One of the things that I find is very challenging, because in Japan, the way they say their name is different than how we sometimes say it in English. I often have a huge amount of trouble getting students to write their name consistently one way. So I start my school year with an assignment that explains how I want them to write their name. So first I check to make sure that the syllabus system spelling of their name in English is the same as how they would like to spell their name. Then I explain that an English self-introduction is different than a Japanese self-introduction. We say our given name and then our family name. And I explain that I always want them to do that for presentations and similar situations, such as self-introductions. Doesn't always happen. Then I explain that I would like their name as they write it in Japanese, that is with their family name and then their given name. And then I explain about a file name. So I provide an example, and then I ask them to do the same. And so this is actual work from students, and it's actually sorted alphabetically at this point in time. So what I can do is just copy the score. You can see where it's red, I would deduct 1 or 2 points. And so I've scored this, and I go back to my grade sheet inside my worksheet, and I'm going to choose paste special, because I've got a few formatting things here. You'll notice it's in red. It stays red for blank cells, which means if a student hasn't submitted something, it will show up as red. So I want to keep that formatting, and with that in mind, I paste values only, and their grade goes in. And then I designate the points above, in this case, 3 points was the maximum. And so we're looking pretty good as far as our students go thus far. Based on that name, we did a self-introduction. So let's look at that. Once again, I can open it here because I've embedded a link. And here's a bit more of a complicated sheet. It's using the query function that I'd like to talk about at another time, perhaps in a workshop. For now, basically, I've assigned students into groups, and there are tabs along the bottom for each group. And students don't have to write their name because it's tied with a query. Also here, there's a query so that I can score their results. And so I look at what they've done and I score them. Here's an example of a student writing their name backwards in their self-introduction. And so I highlight it in red. They have to look at it afterwards and correct it. And I deduct a certain number of points, in this case, half a point. So that is done for however many students you have. I do it for up to about 40. And the scores are along the bottom here. They're tied with a query function to a scoring sheet at the end, which is here. Once again, I can take that scoring sheet and copy it. Once again, this is done using a query function. So when I go back to my work where I want to put in their scores, first what I need to do is paste as values only. Okay, it's a special paste, otherwise it will look like garbage. But in this case, once again, the students are in alphabetical order, but I'm going to just check to make sure names correspond. I'm not giving somebody the wrong grade. That's one of the reasons why people writing their name is so important, because often we have to sort. So once again, I'm going to take that and I'm going to paste it in as their self-introduction grade. Once again, with values only to preserve the formatting. And you'll notice student 24 and student 25 down here are did not submit the assignment, so it comes up in red. The points value in this case was 5. And so, yeah, now we're starting to sort things out in our class a little bit more in terms of who's doing the work and who isn't. So those are 2 examples of Google Sheets and how, yeah, by highlighting in red and then getting them to go back and look at it and correct it, you can give students very quick feedback about what they're doing. Next, what I'd like to look at is the profile I mentioned earlier. So profile, if I open it, is a form. Oh, I'm sorry, I've embedded the wrong link, but basically we'll go here. Yeah, I have the profile and it looks something like this. Okay, this is the live form, what it looks like for students. And they have to answer a number of questions that help me to know where they come from, where they're at, what their experience is, what their goals are, etc. So that's an assignment that I'm not so fussy about their language so much as just getting to know them. So in this case, what I do is I award a point for each. Just 1 point. And in this case, I'll go back to our work to the grade sheet and I'll check with a sort to make sure that everybody's there. And I can see student 5 didn't submit. So I'm going to insert a cell, which shifts everything down. And then going through again, we have student 12 not submitting. So I'll do the same thing. And who else? Let's see. Student 19 didn't submit, right? Okay, so now I have basically, if I'm just going to give them 1 point, I'll do something like this. And eliminate that 1 point for the people that did not submit. Okay, so I have basically 3 non-submissions. And the earlier you get started in reminding people that they need to be consistent and do their work on time, the easier your job will be in the end, and the easier it is to explain to them perhaps why they're not getting the grade that they feel they're capable of. Okay, so I paste that in. And with incomplete assignments, I also, for the sake of participation, keep a record of that. So yeah, we have some incompletes, and that's something that impacts their final grade in terms of attendance, well, participation, which is 10% of their overall grade, and will be calculated based on the total points accrued at the end of the semester. All right, so that's an example of really basic feedback using a form and tying it to a sheet. Going back to another sheet here, here's an example of, this is all building towards something, another example of asking students to write about things that they've done, and ultimately I'll score that, and I'll put that in there as well for the scoring. So another part of Workspace would be Flipgrid, and this is really important for speaking because it's impossible for a teacher to circulate around and give feedback on a regular basis to all students in a class when there's a synchronous activity going on. So asking them to do something like Flipgrid is really, really helpful because they record and then they can also actually share that Flipgrid, which is quite useful. And I hope that this is going to open for me. Okay, so here we go. This is a self-introduction Flipgrid where I'm asking students basically to introduce themselves again based on what we've done, and then share 10 things about themselves, at least 3 of those things. So they're going to record that, and then I'm going to watch that recording. And based on that, I'm going to give them some feedback. Once again, feedback is challenging, it's time consuming, watching all of these, how to get them feedback on a timely basis. What I do is I use a feedback sheet that I've developed. So here is what the feedback sheet looks like. It has certain rubrics. I try to explain to students how they get their grade using a rubric to begin with. And here's an example of a graded Flipgrid. So in this case, I was awarding 4 points for fluency, 5 points for content, 6 points for accuracy, and then recording some basic comments. And with those comments, I can also include, for example, grammar tips or examples of how to pronounce something, right? So let's practice. First, good job.
First.
Okay, so that works. And that's an example of something that you can do with feedback. And then, so with this, you'll notice what I've done basically is I've hidden the first column. Okay, you can hide and unhide columns. And I hid the first column because the first column has their names, right? And then I sorted it based on the second column. So when I was actually grading this, I was grading it based on having their names in alphabetical order. In this case, it would be usually student 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then afterwards, sorting it according to column B, which is their secret name. And I do that by advanced sorting, choosing column B. And that sorts it into their secret name. Then I hide their given name. So let's hide that column. And then this is all they can see. So as long as they don't know each other's secret names, you can post all of that feedback in one large setting. But first, let's include it. Make sure we get this right. Let's include it in our grade sheet, and then students can get feedback on everything. I'll show you that. using the grades and homework sheet in a second. Okay, let me unhide that column. Hopefully this is going to work well. Should. Data. We're going to sort that range according to column A. Not shaking out very well right now for some reason. Quite frustrating that. Okay. So I would generally have to fix that, but for now, we're going to assume that it's sorted properly. And I have in alphabetical order the results of all the students. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to the worksheet and put in the grade for the flip grade. Okay, and as you can see, it's not actually tied to this particular class, but let's just assume it is. Get rid of those extra decimal places. And that was a 15-point assignment, so I'll put in 15 points. And here's how our grades are looking now. And what I'm going to do now is copy both the grades and the feedback for the flip grid to the grades and homework sheet. So what I'm going to do is just copy this one particular tab in the sheet to the grades and homework. Okay, here is what grades and homework looks like right now. In this case, my students haven't had their first example of grades yet. So this will be the first time they get their real grades. Okay, so I'm going to take this grades sheet. There's a small triangle there. I'm going to say copy to existing spreadsheet. I'm going to specify the spreadsheet and copy it. I then have an option to open the spreadsheet. So I'm going to open it up. And it should look like this with the copy of the grades. Okay. Here, I need to sort before I post it for the students. Well, this is live. Students can see it anytime. In the corner, the right corner, you can see if there's anybody inside the document, viewing the document other than yourself. In this case, there's nobody, so I'm okay. I'm going to sort according to secret name. I'm going to hide these two columns. So now it's based on the secret name. Nobody else can see. They look for their secret name. If they see red, they know it's not done. In this case, I haven't graded this or this yet, so it's all like that, which is fine. They can see their total. I'll change that from copy of grades to grades. Today is April 20th. So I do that usually on a weekly basis. When it comes to other feedback, like the flip grid here, I do the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to copy that to the grades sheet as well. I actually copied the name of the grade sheet, so I was doing it like that. But if you have a good folder system in place, you might be able to do it that way as well. Either way is okay. So I'm going to open that spreadsheet. And there's the flip grid. April 20th. And once again, I need to be sure to sort according to secret name. So data, sort range. I want to use column B. And sort, hide their name. So they're able to look at it all together. Now, with this stuff, as I mentioned, there are some securities. So getting that link to begin with is in the top right corner. It's share. And there are different settings for share. First of all, are you working inside a school, perhaps? In my case, there's a school. So I could set it so that only people with a school address can see. I can say only people who I grant permission to, or anyone with the link. In this case, for the sake of simplicity, anyone with the link. And then the other thing is, what can they do with it? Can they view it? Can they comment? can they edit it? You want to make sure that the only thing they can do, if it's something such as their grades that you're posting, the only thing they can do is view it. So that's a brief example of the Google settings. And then on the left here is a copy link, in which case I can copy the link, and using that embed, here's the example. Okay, I've just typed example, Command K V, and that link goes in live. Okay, so that's how you would embed a link. There are so many things that I'd like to talk about today. It's been a great pleasure to spend this time with you. My mail address is george.university@gmail.com. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you're interested in what I'm doing or if you have any further questions. Once again, thank you so much to TESOL for this excellent opportunity to explain what I'm doing. Thank you very much and enjoy your conference.